Apakabar.
And for our first presenter for our last session, he has over 23 years of experience in academia, consultancy, and leadership. He holds advanced degrees in finance and has served in senior academic and advisory roles, contributing to research and providing guidance to financial institutions and government agencies. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chief Executive Officer of ISRA Consulting Malaysia, Dr. Mohammed Eskandar Shah Mohammed Rashid.
A round of applause, please.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I guess people are so happy because this is the final sessions, right? So, but I would probably say one of the most important sessions because we're going to talk about human development or capacity, which I think is probably very critical in terms of putting all the ecosystem together. All right. So you probably think that I'm going to be a bit biased. I'm going to speak a lot about Malaysia, but majority of our experience is based in Malaysia. So I would probably think that this is going to be more like a Malaysian experience. But I hope I can generalize and contextualize and try to fit the purpose of today's sessions. So first of all, we have to remember the story of Malaysia is different because we were supported by regulators. INSEF University, where I come from, is perhaps the only university was established by the Central Bank of Malaysia. So this is unique to Malaysia and very rare you see that INSEF or university was established by Central Bank. So unfortunately, the same model may not applicable to other countries because this is not the route that you want to go through. So if you are not supported by the regulators, then you have the only one option, which is you need to develop the Islamic finance capacity through the universities. So curriculum development is becoming very critical if you want to develop this thing through your public university. So a lot of public university, they always start with a bachelor degree and then they move to masters and also they move to PhD. But I would really encourage you to really look at the journey of Malaysia when it comes to curriculum development because we have gone through a lengthy process before we deciding the structure of the curriculum. And the other unique thing about Malaysia is that because of the ecosystem, we were able to pretty much have multiple stakeholders in terms of offering Islamic finance education. So we have Isra Consulting that provide executive education and also training. We also have IFIM, which is supported by the financial institution in Malaysia. We have SIDC, which is part of the Security Commission of Malaysia. And then we have ASAS. We're probably going to hear from Encik Mokhtar shortly. And then, so the point I'm trying to make here is that not all countries would have the luxury to have multiple institutions. So in a country like Philippines, you need to be very strategic in the sense that you need to ensure that whatever curriculum that you want to develop, there must be a proper custodian in terms of who can actually run and oversee the program. I think that's very important because certification that come from multiple stakeholders may not be applicable in the long run. The second point I would like to make is that if you really want to be good in Islamic finance, a lot of people think we need to actually develop the whole spectrum. For example, you need to develop Islamic finance and Islamic economics, Islamic capital market, Islamic social finance and wealth management, Sharia, for example, accounting, auditing, ethics and leadership, sustainable finance, and recently we are talking more about fintech. But somehow, we think that we need to have this complete ecosystem before we can offer Islamic finance. The other approach we like to suggest as well, you may want to start small by working on your capacity in a selected field. For example, in Singapore, they decided to focus on Islamic wealth management. So you can actually develop a very specific area as a capacity before you move to the other areas. Of course, ideally, you want the entire spectrum of Islamic finance to be offered within your university. But sometimes it's very important that you also go deep and try to develop a specific sector that can actually support your national agenda. So in the Philippines, for example, social finance is critical. So which means that there is a need to develop talent which can actually do social finance better than any other parts of the world. So moving on, this is actually the ecosystem for education in Islamic finance. Okay. All right. I'm not sure why the slides here and just a second. Who's controlling the slides? Am I? Am I controlling the slides? Okay. Can we go to the previous slides? Yeah. Okay. So thank you. All right. So I thought I was controlling the slides. Okay, just wait for my cue. So just to move on, so these are some of the qualifications that we have in Islamic finance. The traditional one, you have the degree, you have the master's, and also the PhD, which is very critical. But I have to tell you that, as a new country or a young country in Islamic finance, it's better to offer a master's first rather than to start with a bachelor degree. Because it's a lot more harder for you to actually offer a bachelor degree rather than a master's degree. Why is that the case? Because Islamic finance is still developing. So if you want to really offer at a bachelor degree, then you need to have a lot more courses as compared to a master's degree. So because anybody can come and do Islamic finance. You have a bachelor in Sharia, you can come and do masters in Islamic finance. You have bachelor in finance, you can go to do masters in Islamic finance. So it's much more easier to develop the curriculum for the masters rather than the curriculum for bachelor. Okay, in Malaysia, many people started with bachelor and then they realized that it's hard to get, a good number of students to offer the bachelor degree. But in masters, you can start easily with 10, 15 students. And you can attract, for example, people with a multiple background. So that is the beauty about starting with masters, and then maybe you can consider either go backward with a degree, or you can actually do a PhD as well. I think the other good thing about Islamic finance education is that we also have skill-based qualification. All right. So when you talk about skill-based qualification, you are looking at qualification that produce people with a specific skill. For example, certified Sharia advisor and auditor. Okay, we also have certified Sharia advisor. Okay, so these are perhaps what we call as a skill-based, not really a typical academic contents. So I would say that these are more like a fast track for you to become expert in Islamic finance rather than going the traditional route. So in order for the talent ecosystem to work, then you need to have both parties. You need to have the academic route, you also need to have the professional route. And this is the success story of Malaysia because we were able to do both. All right, we were able to have the quick pathway and also we had the traditional pathway as well. And also importantly, we also need to have more executive education and short courses, which is also aligned to the national curriculum. Next slide, please. So if you allow me to share a bit of INSEF experience, which is the university I come from. So, we started with a master's degree, okay? In fact, the first master's program that we did is what we call as a CIP, Chartered Islamic Financial Professional. That is the first degree that we came out. So I still remember when INSEF was established in 2005, the first intake was 2006. We started with this program and it's fully funded by Central Bank of Malaysia. In fact, the students who come and do this particular program were given a monthly allowance of $500 per month. Okay, so meaning that whenever you start something new, you need to give a great incentive for them to take up these professional qualifications. All right, and then we moved to a master's degree in Islamic finance, Masters of Science in Islamic finance, and then we offer a PhD in Islamic finance. So we go through the journey step by step before we have the full fledged of offering. And more importantly, after we do all these things for many years, we realize that, nowadays the trend, people are not really interested to do a 2-year master's or even a 1.5-year master. So what we have done at INSEF is that we come up with a concept called Can we go back, please? All right. All right. I'm not sure why the slides are not in agreement with me. My apology. Okay, this is the slide. So if you look at the bottom part here, we also have come up with what we call as a professional certificate. So what is professional certificate? It's actually a master's degree, all right, the same courses, but rather than doing a full-fledged master's, we actually decided to combine to only take 3 courses and for you to do a professional certificate. So, and then you can keep accumulating the professional certificates and then convert it into a master's degree. Okay? And the other good thing about our program is that you can also become a professional in Islamic finance, which is offered by the Chartered Institute of Islamic Finance Professional. So if you do our master's, MIP, and then you take 1 more course, and then you can become what we call as a chartered professional, which is equivalent to CFA for finance, and then ACCA for accounting, so on and so forth. So it took years for us to build the ecosystem. And so for those who think that, building academic institution, you can do it very quickly, I'm sorry to give you a bad news that, it took us almost 20 years for us to have this complete ecosystem, and huge amount of investment from the Central Bank of Malaysia and also other stakeholders as well. So that's why you see the continuous supply of talent that coming out from Malaysia, simply because of the huge investment that actually being made by the stakeholders. Can we move to the next slide, please? All right. So in terms of what we do at Israq Consultancy is that, so nowadays, the good thing about Islamic finance, a lot of people are giving a lot of support, funding, opportunity, all right? So we are beneficiary of what we call as Islamic Development Bank. So Islamic Development Bank provide a lot of funding to us to support the Muslim majority countries and also Muslim minority countries. So we do technical assistance, we do reverse linkage, and part of this program is also human capacity development. So instead of going through what we call of Malaysia, I'm sure some of you also familiar, we have a program called MTCP, that provide technical support for other countries as well. We also have done program with World Bank in terms of supporting some of the human capacity. So I would consider you to really look at this program so that you can expedite the process of developing human capacity. I think human capacity is probably the most important thing. So you need to create what we call as icon in Islamic finance. You need to create champion in Islamic finance. Not only they just go out all there and talk about Islamic finance all over the world, but more importantly, they become the hope, and do Islamic finance. I always tell people, the beauty about Islamic finance is that, you can do good, at the same time you can make good money as well. Okay, because you can actually develop the real economy by using something which is better as compared to the conventional system, which is actually contributing to many of the shortcomings that we are seeing today. Next slide, please. Okay. So in terms of executive education, I can just go through quickly. So these are some of the things that we do at INSEF. Next slide, please. Okay. So I want to emphasize on this. So if you can just pay a bit more attention on this, because this is what we learn, the lessons after doing Islamic finance for so many years. When you do the Islamic finance, there's always going to be debate between the academic and the practitioner. The practitioner are more pragmatic. Okay, they were talking about what is, and the academician, they are more idealistic. They want to change the world. So this debate between, what we should do first is always going to be there. So please do not confuse your students by basically becoming very philosophical at the early stage of Islamic finance. Because we have people who give up with Islamic finance because they find that Islamic finance is too complicated, because there are too much of debate rather than agreement. So sometimes you need to find a compromise for start. Build the momentum, build the ecosystem, and then you move to the next stage. So you don't have to get it right at the beginning. Nobody got it right at the beginning. All right? This notion that we need to do Islamic finance perfectly from the beginning is actually the reason many institutions fail and they give up on Islamic finance. Okay? And it's also you need to give proper consideration to Islamic finance practices. You learn from the ecosystem as well. So learning is actually both ways. we learn from the theory and push it to the system, and then the system give it back to us, and then we learn from the system. So what I'm trying to say here is that academic and industry relationship is very important. Okay, and that's another reason why Malaysia is so successful, because we have institutions like Maybank and CIMB and many of the banks giving support in terms of funding, scholarship, and so on and so forth. Without the industry support, Islamic finance will find it difficult to move forward. And the other thing I want to also argue is that when people do Islamic finance, it's easy to get hijacked from the idea. Okay? The idea of sustainability will hijack Islamic finance. The idea of ethical might hijack Islamic finance. So it's very important that you maintain the identity of Islamic finance. So we don't have to be apologetic by doing Islamic finance. So it's very important that you stand to the value of Islamic finance, understand what is exactly the value proposition, and try to push it gradually. And people always say with Islamic finance you can change the world. Yes, I agree to a certain extent, but you need to do it slowly, with the right strategy, with the right pace, and creating a human capital, I think the most important thing. Next slide, please. All right. So if you look, previous slide, please. All right. Previous slide. Okay. So if you, okay. All right. I know it's a late evening, even the slides are tired, okay? So just bear with us, okay? All right. Okay, so whenever you do Islamic finance, so these are some of the things that you really have to take into consideration. Number one, Islamic finance is difficult, okay? Very challenging. Why is that the case? Because only in Islamic finance you need to learn economics, you need to learn finance, you need to learn Sharia, you need to learn law, and now you also need to learn some form of technology. So putting Islamic finance curriculum is really challenging. Okay? So this is where you can have some universities specialized in a certain areas. So one university, for example, can be more focused on law. One university can focus more on Sharia. One university can focus a bit more on economics. So you can have a greater emphasis in a certain area. You don't have to have one university which is good in everything. This is another reason why academics always fail, because we always try to compete with each other rather than we trying to cooperate. So try to cooperate and look at your skill, advantage, and research area, and then provide. A lot of people get excited with Islamic finance. So everybody wants to Islamic finance, and then they realize that the demand is not there, and they will close it down. So I think you need to do a proper demand study before you offer Islamic finance, because it's a risk if you offer and then you close it down, or stop offering the program, and so on and so forth. So it's very important that you have capacity before you offer the program. And most important thing is the academic rigor. Do not compromise the quality. Do not say that Islamic finance is a lower quality as compared to the conventional finance. It's more difficult than the conventional one. Next one, please. Last slide. Okay? All right. So I already explained to this. And the point I would like to try to make on this is that you will get a lot of criticism whenever you do Islamic finance. Some people will say, Islamic finance is just mimicking. Some people will say, this is just another way of, creating something new. But you need to be resilient. You need to be patient. And from our experience in Malaysia, what we do is that we just keep expanding the ecosystem. We just keep pushing the ecosystem. And luckily, we had the support of Central Bank of Malaysia. So in Philippines, I assume that we will have a strong support of NCMF, since they are very supportive of this initiative. Because it's very important that we need to have one body that become the custodian of this. Because if you just let it, loosely everywhere, everyone is doing it without a proper custodian, things going to be quite challenging. So Alhamdulillah, in Malaysia, we have our regulators, our higher education entity really become the custodian of Islamic finance. And as you can see, the result is that the industry grow because we continue channeling talent towards Islamic finance. Next one, please. Okay. So moving forward, my last slide before I end my presentation. Okay. It's very important that you consider an integrated curriculum design. So you must bring all of them together. literacy is very important. So don't force people to take Islamic finance, but convince people that Islamic finance is actually a career path that you really consider. So you need to have an anchor institutions, all right? So which means that you need to have a champion. So if University of Philippines can become the champion, or Mindanao State University can become the champion, so you need to have a success story before you actually pushing Islamic finance to the. And last but not least, we already spoken about the power of technology. So please use use the space of technology in terms of pushing Islamic finance education. So with that, I hope, thank you so much. Thanks for listening. So inshallah, I hope that Philippines will become very successful when it comes to Islamic finance. Thank you so much.
Terima kasih Dr. Muhammad Iskandar Shah Muhammad Rasid.